All right, you guys, we are back on our Cypress slab project. I've got a lot to go over with you, a lot of great useful tips. In this video, we want to show you everything that we have got going on. We are really close to taking this to the planer and coming on with the finish. So what I want to show you right out the gate, let's jump right into it. If you all remember back on the first one, part one, the cupping in this slab was right here in the center. So it was about probably 1/8 of an inch down inside. It smiled just like this. So now look. See, just by putting the applications already, now the whole entire middle there has filled back in. Remember, everything's self-leveling, so it kind of all contoured to where it was unlevel, and now we're touching all the way. So I just wanted to point that out. It really don't matter once it goes through the planer anyway. It was going to fix all that, but it did its job, making everything pretty nice and solid all the way across. So look, here's the next thing I want to show you with casting resin. You see all the waves in the top finish. That is just a little tiny bit of casting resin sitting on the surface that has ran out of the gashes and everything like that. And it's very wavy. It's because it's not that deep. It's very shallow. And here's the cool thing. Watch this right here. So this was the second pour, which caused that to grow a little thicker, and watch what happens. Look at the clarity difference, just adding a little bit more. So my point is, shallow spots are going to finish out like that with casting resin. The thicker they are, the more clarity is going to start showing. That's why when you get right here in the gashes themselves, look how clear that is, because it's deep. So that was another thing I wanted to show you all, and this all turned out really well. All the deep spots here, just crystal clear. All right, so I want to give you this view back here. This is kind of more like the finished view, if you will. So all the dark residue out there on the surface, you know, including the sharpness of all the gashes and lines and everything in between, all that's going to come together once it goes through the planer. So you won't see any of these tool marks, anything like that. It's going to just really shape all this stuff back up. So our gashes and things like that are really bold. All this is turning out really good looking. And I want to bring you down here to this end. This is where we had put the tuck tape across. We had built this little wall out. Okay, we got a lot of curvature in this edge. It made it a challenge to put flat things here to try to build this wall to house that resin. It actually turned out really well on our side. The tape is no big deal. We're going to be cutting right through this. The whole reason we were bumped out in the first place stems back to part one when I was showing you this piece. This had something put on it flat to trap that resin right there, and when you take off that flat wall, as you can see, you have to get way back past that to get it to look like that again. So that was our whole objective here on this side, to let this flow way out past what we need so we can just trim the fat and make that go away before we send it through the planer. So it turned out crystal clear. Look at the clarity and how deep that is. And a lot of what you're seeing right here is just from the tuck tape. But look how clear that turned out. So, and I want to point out something else. You see those little tiny bubbles right at that line, and those are the only ones there. I want to tell you how that happened. No bubbles are right here in this volume. Those accumulated because as we were sealing all these gashes right there to the tip, we did not come down on the wood any past the bottom of those, not even thinking. So realistically, those happened later on in the curing process, because for the first couple hours we were back here and they were not there. It was crystal clear. So somewhere in the curing process while we were sleeping, those showed themselves, because that wood right there at that line, kind of like this right here, and they accumulated right there where we didn't have any resin. So if that was a river that went all the way through, you wouldn't want to see those at the bottom. So we should have brought that seal coat down. If in fact we cared about any of this right here on the finish side, we should have brought those seal coats down a little further. That way we wouldn't have had those line up right there. But in our case, no big deal, because that's going away, and this all turned out spectacular. So here is our last hurdle before we can take this to the planer. Moving on down here to this end. This guy. And let me tell you something. As best as I can show you, you can see it now. He's deep. Those run pretty far back, like a foot or so up underneath. So what we're gonna do with this right here is we're actually gonna make life easy. We're gonna stand this up, and we're gonna put a flat bottom on the back side of that to trap every bit of this, and we're gonna fill it up from this angle till it reaches the top. Now, just like up top here, there's a good chance once we seal all this and everything, it's probably gonna leak a little bit deeper than what we had hoped. But it might take another pour just like that. Eventually it'll fill up, and then we'll be ready to take this to the planer. All right, so lastly, I promise, and we'll bring this to a close, but this is a very important little tip right here. So there's a huge difference in what we're doing, trying to fix this top for this gentleman. We're going about it this way. There's another way we could have went, okay? But it's a lot more intensified. It's a lot more expensive. Just in case anybody was wondering, you know, instead of doing all this and praying not for any leaks to happen and run through, and now to have to stand this up and pour this in, and what we had to do to that end. Well, here's the difference. If we would have bought the materials to build a box, to trap all this, to house it, to drop this down in it, and fill all this up with resin, yes, we would not have had to worry about any leaks. It would have went a whole lot smoother. It would have been a one pour type deal, but a lot more expensive, a lot more labor, and more importantly, both of these two sides here have been cut, you know, rectangle, if you will. But the front is a natural bend in the Cypress itself. And by us building a box here, we would have taken that shape away from the front. It would have cost a lot more money to purchase the resin needed to fill up everything that deep all the way around, not to mention the materials it takes to build the box, the time, everything else. So this was the least inexpensive way we could still reach our goal in helping out and bringing this to a finish. So I just wanted to point that out. Hope all this helps you at home. We'll be back real soon to cast this side right here, and then it's off to the planer. Till the next one, you all.